need that because a lot of our casualties.
Feet gets the blood pumping.
In fact, it's more I was and I looked up children killed. I was trying to find a specific child. And it was four of them. Two of them, five photos. Two of them, again, had several others, right? And then there was four others that died 3 days later, right? Like a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 19-year-old, right? And it was so difficult to find, there were less than 4 before this. I had to search it in Arabic for their names to come up in the Palestinian casualty roll. And it was almost impossible. I was shocked that there was 4, the low 18, one of the 19 minors that died. And I could not find this recording. I'm like, wait, I'll do it. Oh, it'll come up. Oh, here. And it just wouldn't come up. It's like, so yeah, we need to have people instead of the guys, the other Vikings that are reporting because there is a bias against us. And our stories argue against they argue the race.
All I'm trying to get you to see that it's the same on both.
That. But it can't be that. It can't. It's either one side's stories are buried and the other is highlighted.
I think both sides can be buried. Clearly they are, because I'm not trying to invalidate your experience, but you're trying to invalidate mine. I'm telling you,
maybe from different publications.
Sure. The media overall, I'm telling you.
Exactly from what we suffering. It feels to me like we're in a movie. We are the actors, we are the puppets, and there's some people out there that are watching the movie and just enjoy and eating their food. And there's a lot of people suffering with it. Listen to me, please. I swear, I want to cry. I swear, no one in this world, and I don't care what side, if it's a Palestinian or Jewish or Ukrainian or Russian, supposed to live on their bones. No freaking way. And I'm talking to you as a veteran, as someone who was there inside, as someone who volunteered to carry all those, as someone who has a friend Muslim. No one. And you know what? All of my friends also in Israel, no one wants to go to Gaza. We are afraid. It's afraid the shit out of us to go to Gaza. We didn't want to go outside that is. As kids, I went there when I was 19 years old. We don't want to go there. Absolutely, we don't want you. That's that. We don't want you. It's 2%, bro. Makes sense. 2%. What I'm trying to say is that, listen, you're talking about the publication. We're talking about the publication. We have a big problem. We are suffering from the same shit. And some people out there watching, and we are puppets, and we are we play the game of our game. You play the game of your game, and we are like there is some clash here, and some people are benefiting from this. Now look, our government, the news outlets or social media, what's the difference? Everyone has an agenda.
You can agree that Al Jazeera actually has more of a sympathy and a bias for the Palestinian struggle. Just like in the region. Western countries of India, always have some everything, always supported the Jews. Now it's a little less biased. Now it's a little less biased. Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
Some do, perhaps. You can't do the entire, every media outlet in all of America is all.
Have you ever heard? We're talking about the major ones. CNN, Fox, to be more honest. They've always because they're showing the children dying. That's not what we said. That's how we got. U.S. sends money to Israel?
Yeah.
Media also
the U.S. also sends money to Israel. They also just released a ton of money to Iran. The U.S. is the biggest cluster in the whole thing. The Jimmy Carter. I mean, it's like they love to get out trouble in the region.
I would say
there's a lot about this in America.
We're talking brought to you by Qatar, U.S., Russia, everything that has no actual direct interest and wants to mess with us. That's the issue.
And it's like you said, you're sitting there covering while all of our governments are playing. But however, this is what I do have a problem with, and you can agree, disagree. Every time, and again, with all due respect, right? We're trying to find a middle ground here, but hear me out before we all go on, okay? For 75 years of illegal occupation, have been bleeding and you have been suffering. Whether you want to hear it or not, please respect that that's what you're saying. I get it. I understand it. Maybe if I was sitting on your side, okay, but you have to, I'm
asking for compassion, where is the humanity? And every time we say, well, this Palestinian person was unalived by Israeli forces or this and that, it's no offense. Then on the Israeli side, yeah, but what about us? Okay, 10,000 Palestinians just were unalived and bombed in Gaza, then the Israelis. What about us? We have been bleeding and crying for 75 years. When is it our turn to mourn?
Right. And the bias of the media, Western media against Palestinians. Have you ever heard a Western publication state that Palestine has the right to defend itself? Follow up. Do any of you believe that Palestine has the right to defend itself?
The first question is actually really interesting. I haven't. That's actually really interesting
Is
question.
that indicative of a bias?
No, because I'd like to answer the second
No.
question. I'd like to answer the second. I think there's a bias against both of us, by the way. I don't disagree.
Huh?
No. This is me. I think there's a bias against both of us, and I think we're coming to an understanding. But however, I think the second question is also very interesting because the way that we see it, we are never on the offensive. The way that I get that you guys disagree. Just hear me out. I think this is where there's a huge misunderstanding. Okay. From Israel's perspective, we've offered peace so many different times. From our perspective, we have diplomatically offered peace so many times, and it's always responded to with war and violence. And so from our perspective, we would never initiate those wars or violences when we know we initiated towards us. That's why we always the idea Israeli translated. So for us, that's our perspective. And right now, unequivocally, if there were no terrorist attacks, so much of what is happening just simply would not exist. Everything came in place, the blockade for this, for that, and the other, they all came after as responses. So when we disengaged from Gaza in 2005, we did not have the blockades that existed. We did not have the blockade that existed now. Why did this happen? Because in the following years, right after that, rockets immediately started flying from Gaza. Terror attacks immediately started coming out. So for us, we have done, from our perspective, right, from our perspective, this is how we view it. We are constantly offering diplomatic concessions that are turned down with violence, and often with violence on some of our holiest days. So from your perspective, defending yourself, I feel very bad that this is a difference in perception because I can understand where you're coming from and feeling frustrated that the youth defense is not used in your for your side. And so I can understand that would be very frustrating. But from our perspective, this is where we're coming from.
Our children should not inherit this conflict.
Glad that everybody stepped forward because I think it's important that at the very foundation of what we're doing here today that we all agree that this isn't a way to live and that we can't keep suffering more heartbreak and more losses. I always used to say my parents used to tell me that when they had children that they would hope outside would be free and before we go back and live a life and how many hardships and now people my age, who have children and sisters and a lot of family members who have kids themselves, having to have that conversation, talk about who we are as a people and our history and what we've been through and passing on that intergenerational trauma. That continues to be carried, from our great-grandparents all the way down to us. It's heartbreaking, and this isn't a world that we should be allowing something like this to perpetuate. Yeah, it would be great for everybody to be able to go and to live and to, walk the beaches and visit the holy sites and not have to fear for their life while doing it.
This is who wants to live like this forever? This is crazy. If I'm going to bring kids into this world, kids in the house, and I don't want to live in a world without the optimism that sees the possibilities. I really don't. I think that's a world to live in. I refuse to believe that as a younger generation, as a newer, smarter, more informed generation, that we can't come together and make something tangible actually happen for our kids. I totally agree.
And I think the only way to do that is for people on both sides to recognize each other, and that we're going to disagree on whatever, but one side has their story, their truth, their lived experience. The other has the same. We don't have to convince the other to speak the exact same way. We just have to see each other and acknowledge that we're both in this situation. We both want to get out of it. And let's treat each other like human beings and find the way out of it.
No, what's involved? What's involved?
I'm a Jew.
Oh, so. Like, what? Yeah. Where do you go? Where do you go? Where do you go? It's easy for you to say what you say. We do want to do this. So we do need to be able we do need to be able to find a future for ourselves. But respectfully,
The Hunts Master is grim, but he's 30 years ago. The fortress monastery of Aurelian was attacked by an unknown force. That battle ended when the core of Aurelian was consumed by darkness, what we now know as gloom. The remnants you encountered in Aurelian were a flawed form of echo. It's an old mystery, but we need to know the answers. Who attacked Aurelian? Who unleashed the gloom? Was it the monsters of the maze? Could it have been the Eldrin?
People from different countries, they feel heard from social media or whatever, and kind of think what they think about the situation. The problem is, there's not going to be, I don't believe that this is going to end as long as Palestinians are back.
Here's The Last of Us Part 2 running on PS5 Pro. What we see here is a difference in detail. PS5 Pro is much sharper and crisper than PS5.
Number 1. Number 2. Number 1.
All these things, of course, yeah. But what I'm saying is, what I believe on
Let him finish.
Yeah. I guess I think we have disagreements on what we think needs to happen to end. You think, oh, well, we're just on the Palestinian side and submit. I think that they're not going to accept.
Yeah, anybody hear me say that? You just pointed at the end.
I think that the solution would be to end the occupation.
What's up, bro? What? That's your paycheck.
Two sides to every story. So the Israeli side would be, well, they need to stop having terrorist attacks in Israel, or we can stop at this.
It's the first day of vacation, and I'm ready to unwind. I'm anxious about going back to work. Time to unplug and recharge. Soon I'll be back to living the same day.
And the U.S. bringing people.
It's the first day of vacation.
Making things happen. If we're just stuck in the interfighting of on there, that's
the land tax and the settlement, yeah. Well, that's most people in the world.
I would love to actually respond to what you're saying.
I'm going to jump in. So what's my question about it?
The objective use is true. Yeah, they're enough promise and their objective.
Are you married?
I would.
There's objective.
Plan. Uppercase T, uppercase P. Plan. Yellow school buses, because who doesn't love a yellow school bus? Think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Travel and transport, so there aren't these sort of weird blockades or blockages that you can't bring your friends somewhere, or you can't visit a cousin who's in a different town. There's actually a lot of really awesome orgs that are working on these sort of tangible, actionable items that we can do to improve the situation and the lives on the ground. And if anything, I think in the last 4 or 5 years, what we've seen with the Abraham Accords, bringing peace between so many nations, Israel, in the Arab countries, to me, as a Moroccan Jew, I almost cried at the thought of peace between my countries. It's like reconciling my two identities. Excuse me, let me please finish. Reconciling my two identities to me was so special. And so that to me was one of the things that we've done, bringing in, many people from Gaza with work visas into Israel, people who work in Israel, having a young, but I'm talking since then, the last 4 years, making noticed in the last 11 months in Israel, we've had a number of protests to be able to also further improve the situation. We are working towards that. I think it's one of the most important things is for us to not look at it as a non-binary thing. Progressives are so quick to look at sexuality and gender and non-binary, but when it comes to these sort of complex issues, everything's black or white. It's peace or no peace. That's never going to happen. We need to come together and work on tangible things we can do to improve the situation. So you're right. I actually really agree with you, and I wish that you could hear my agreement.
So all I was going to reply to you is Abraham Accords. Houses were not even involved. No, we don't accept Abraham Accords. We don't even confront them. That's what I think most people asked in 2006. And this is a history that goes back centuries. The Palestinians being excluded. When that first started, a million Palestinians, nearly a million, 750 plus Palestinians were expelled from their homes, some fled, others were murdered, right? And then you have the 1947 partition plan, which is like, hey, we're taking 55%, you guys took 45. You're saying we offered many resolutions. Who would do that? Somebody came to America right now and took our country and said, hey, you guys took 45%. Nobody would accept that. So you got to also look at it.
So, have kids when we're wearing television, so we're selling with television. We heard the line goes up. Like, you heard it, we heard it, like, and the son goes, yeah, what's that? Like, that's the alarm. And then I'm like, okay. So, to the point, I'm happy my kids didn't know what it is, because I know what it is. I grew up into this country. In my house, we don't talk about that. We don't talk what, like my son, we started talking about still at work, but it's still always like 7 days. And he was, my kid doesn't know anything about this because for me, I don't know. They don't supposed to know about that. My question is, why the kids in Gaza are learning books of Hitler? Books of Hitler. You see books of Hitler all over Chicago, all over the schools. They're all over all those books. That was the day. There is no even one program in any school in Israel that teach you to hate others. Not even one book, not even one story. In school curriculum.
Very likely that was planted. That was very likely that was planted. And I think
planted, come on, by soldiers like me 20 years ago.
Also,
planted those things.
Can I answer your question with another one? Yeah, more just
because every time we will say something is being something, you guys are right. Listen, I was a soldier 20 years old. You know, when you go to classify the words, until you get into the house, you want to show yourself. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. Listen, as a soldier, you don't want to be there. So there is no soldiers who left in the home to take a photo. Soldiers and leadership.
Also, by Human Watch Organization, there was an investigation that in Israeli schools inside of Israel, not all of them, but some of them, that they were taught to hate Palestinians.
Oh, no.
That's Human Watch. Human Rights Watch on their website, that was an investigation. But I would like to go back to the Olympic okay? Because everybody, there are reasons why I don't want any your kids or our kids to inherit this conflict. Is because number one, maybe not for you guys, but for us as Palestinians, we already risk sitting on this panel not being able to ever go back to visit our family in Palestine ever again. I do have family in the West Bank, I said that earlier. My father's Palestinian and my grandmother and great grandmother are actually Jewish from Germany. I wanted to make sure everyone knew that. But I've been on Canary Mission since 2014 because I'm an activist. However, being on this panel or even what's been happening the past month and a half or 2 months, whatever we're at, God help us all, I risk of not being able to ever go back and visit any of my family in West Bank again. Even though I'm not saying, kill this person, kill it, and give them just by saying free Palestine. They could stop me at the Tel Aviv airport and say, that's it, you can't come in because you have Sophia and you're Palestinian and you said this on social media. And if I have kids one day, maybe my kids, because I spoke up for humanity, okay? And again, this is what this is on whatever side you're talking about. Maybe my kids won't be able to go back because they're like, well, their mom is Rima, she can't go back. You know what I'm saying? This needs to end. I'm tired. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of getting angry. I'm sure you're tired. I'm fed up with it. You know, when people say, oh, Palestine never existed, Palestinians don't exist. You take away our rights
to exist is a problem for me. And that is a big, and I tell people that when they come on my TikTok live, I stop them right away. So you say that Palestinians don't exist, you are part of the problem right there. We do exist. My father does exist. Our voices matter. Our land matters. We have been there. It's got to stop for everybody. I actually tweeted, Israel doesn't exist, Palestine doesn't exist. I can't think of two worse conversation starters. Because I just think it's a ridiculous place to start. And in 1985, the Arab League recognized Palestine and confirmed it as well. And so for me, I think that you have to start from humanization. Like someone was saying earlier, we can't dehumanize each other. Otherwise, we have just no chance. No chance.
Totally. I think they accept the existence obviously of Palestine, and they accept exactly what they do. They do. And actually, maybe 99% of the people know, right? The question is, what's the majority of your direction?
You say HarleyCostume.com. Are you ready to run? Just get up this top now. It comes in sizes extra small to 4XL.
I asked Miller for a kid's costume this Halloween, and she came back with this sweet ensemble.
Here, you go. Totally stage ready.
She just wanted a kiss costume.
Mine are officially licensed and only at HarleyCostume.com.
I just wanted a kiss costume. Don't end up like me. Go to HalloweenCostume.com so that your costume can be great and your Halloween fantastic.
But they don't always have 1 to 2 hours a day to actually prepare a meal and then clean up after. Because they don't think about how do you go on the deal with the line, the grocery store, waiting for people to eat at a restaurant. People call for community meal service.
And it's so much more.
The beauty of community is that I get restaurant meals in the comfort of my own home without any of the structure.
It's just way less expensive than takeout, and it's actually just tastes better.
So community is like a weekly personal transaction.
Overly. Thing about Jewish, because all we see right now, all we feel, by the way, we feel what you feel, by the way, and I'm not going to take it away from you, right? Whatever you feel right now, I swear 100, I'm not going to take it away from you, but what we feel is that Palestinians want to make sure that Jewish people have no right to stay in Israel, and they need to die.
We can't speak for everyone just like we can't speak for all other people. I'm telling you as a Palestinian, not because my grandmother's Jewish. We are not against you. We don't want to get rid of the Jewish people.
And I love to hear that. And it's fun. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Because I was here so much. We don't want Jewish to be get killed because they're Jewish people. I swear, it's open everything to a conversation. Because all I want is just to make sure that if you just sit in front of me, you don't want to kill me? Oh, I'm down for everything. Bro, I'm down for everything.
We do not want Jewish people. Absolutely. I don't think there's a single Muslim that thinks that Islam truly that can, in his right mind, justify in any way, theologically, rationally, logically, that a Jewish person doesn't have the right to live. Yes. There's a difference between being opposed to the Zionist regime and the Zionist governmental political policy and being opposed to an individual who subscribes, has nothing to do with that part of the world, who has a religion of Judaism. We're brothers, we're cousins. Abraham has 2 sons, Ismail and Ishaq, right? And we descend from them. So we're not only brothers, we're half brothers. We have a problem with the ideology. The entire basis is establishing the state strictly for Jewish people, which makes it by definition an apartheid state, on the land of another people.
So we don't think
The way it's currently defined, absolutely. Do I acknowledge you as a human being? Absolutely. Do I acknowledge traditional displacement? No, that's not what I said. I said the way it's currently formed. The ideologies that led to its forming. The land without a people for a people without a land. The entire pretext to the formation of the state we disagree with. But then
I
find a
think
different
I
way to exist.
Find a different way to exist. And find a different, yes, you can. Find a different way to exist.
But not with the idea that it's a majority Jewish state is but not a state.
It was never meant to be a majority Jewish state. The intention was, hold on, no, listen, 45% of the original proposed prime state by Herzl was 45% was meant to be Muslim Arab, okay? And there was going to be a fractional percent, 1% Jewish in the Palestinian state, okay? So we were willing to accept up to 45% of our country being Arab, right?
What's happening?
But hold on a second. The original premise of Zionism is not to be something to eradicate anything. It says that we want to come in with diplomatic, be able to get the state diplomatically. To be able to not do it through colonizing, that's literally what his letters say. And it's really important to understand that for us, Zionism is not an evil thing. And people have told us it's our turn and used it as a spur against us. When to us, it's something sacred. It means our right to self-determination.
Return to the Undercroft.
Just as you want the right to self-determination to Palestinians,
Devoted to his task. Without his guidance, we would have starved long ago.
Think that Zionism is one way, you think it's that way, right? But what I want to clarify, okay? So before I'm going to wrap up, William said so you want all Jews to offer. Okay, no, it's okay. Zionism to us and to other people, the way that we know it and is, whatever you think you would say, or this way. Yes, I want you, I know, but if we're winning that way, I want you to know that no point of any person speaking up for Palestine or Palestinian or whatever the case may be, we've never, are there radical people on each side? Yes, there are. But we want to live in peace. We want to live as neighbors. We want to love each other. It does not mean to find a lot of Jews. It does not mean to eradicate all the Jewish people. But that's not what anybody who is speaking in a good aspect of our nation, what we need, and again, our nation has to be on both sides, and sure there are. We can't just throw everybody. But for the most part, for the majority, no, we don't want to get rid of Jewish people. No human being would want to get rid of any person.
Where the hell are we?
The day Hamas came to people, we slaughtered 1,400 people, they had some women, they had our babies, and all of that, and I was there for that. I was released. And we had a policy, I got my from college, when it all happened, see how you like this. So all regular like everything video and all this people then People have died, children, women, etc. So that's the main reason I came up here. You can't classify anything else but a loss, even if it helps you get better, things get better. We've all lost. Tragedy, so many people died on the last 6 to 8 weeks, you know. 2 million residents displaced, 18,000 died, 8,000 children, 4,000 women, some of your health monitors. And generally, these numbers that come from presidents, so you can't find on the rerun. So it's that. And also, as you mentioned, the innocent civilians and children who are taken hostage, 7, none of that's okay. So yeah, so long. Water, clean water, there is 95% of absence. Electricity is only available 11 hours of the day. About March, consuming every 3 to 5 years. A couple miles away. Yeah. Of course it is, because it's not the most. You know how much money water supply to others? Yeah. No, Israel controls the water supply to others. Did they not shut off the water, the electricity, and the food up there? You control it.
Where the hell are we?
very big issues with that. Okay, with our more people for instance, on the other situation, if we're thinking about Israel studying the law, we put 100% war. There was already a war crisis in Gaza. Now the war has completely exacerbated that crisis. I don't think because of the war, people are very terrified. Because people are thinking that people can know that it's so we're thinking that there are things that actually wasn't being looked at. But again, we need different operations like we need having but the operation is not
The goal of Israel's war is to make sure that the Jewish state will stay alive. For me, that the Jews will stay alive, whether they're winning because the other side the Jewish state. That's their goal. That's their Hamas. So I'm not saying nothing gets the Hamas will be eliminated. Israel and Jewish state, as long as they're not eliminating and they're not killing or wiping the Jewish state, then the Jewish state always wins. And the goal of the Jewish state right now is to wipe out Hamas. The socialists make you feel better. They increase focus and energy, stress free. Plus, they cut down the blood. Feeling good. But when you taste good, so much you get your coffee. This thing is not good. Feel is better.
Well, that's fun.
They killed more people disproportionately. You know the ratio of communist nationality. You said the goal is so good. You said the goal is around maybe 100 or more in this time. I mean, 18,000 people died. The ratio is 1 to 100. 1 to 100. This is the most capable military in the world. It can't be more active. The ratio is are you going to use the goal of the world? The goal of the world. Why should we kill our innocent civilians? Those people. That's much better.
I was at last year in Gaza where on October 7th, to spend a lot of the pay. You got $10,000 plus money. But actually, a lot of Gaza citizens when you saw them in the same clothing going through the border and seeing they couldn't have anything like that. And you guys keep saying Hamas. 5,000 people. I have never heard that.
Okay. That's what I 5,000 people. You break it into that thing. The next one was weird.
From my perspective, the reason why I did not step forward is because I feel like Palestinians, again, from my perspective, have lost more in the recent events based on numbers. And over the last 75 years, the fact that also Israel is one of the strongest militaries in the world, and there is billions of dollars every year.
Your actual allies are to us.
Okay. Money Palestine gets, this is what Israel gets, is not the same amount. You can look it up.
They're not fucking fight. They're not playing ball, bro.
Let's see. Israel talks about well, I'm not talking about that. I want to tell you why I do not step forward. Okay? You cannot say that it's people on both sides. You cannot say that it's some of the same responsible stuff. Okay? Because the numbers are there. I acknowledge that you have lost. I want you to acknowledge that we have lost a lot of people to a higher percentage, higher ratio. And that's why I don't feel that it's fair that you say that our suffering has been the suffering. The suffering is immense and it's great for both of us. When you look at the numbers, it's disproportionate, and that is why I don't think that both sides have lost the war. I believe Israel has the advantage right now because they have the military, they have the tanks, they have the weapons. The people in Gaza, literally, civilians have nothing to defend themselves. Your buildings are falling on them. You know what? The worst I would like when I say something about Palestinian suffering that you don't think like that.
for Israel and protest. I'm pro two-state solution, so that's pretty much why I walked up here. I don't think a one state is reasonable. I think two states is much easier to accomplish. Been something our leaders, like the aircraft, etc. We put so much into
The soldiers you've been fighting are codes. This changes everything. Return to me as quickly as
when I think about pro-Palestinians, I divide it into two sections. Israel
possible.
whatever it is, that I agree with you, and I really told you before, I really felt for the innocent people that are dying. Some people feel the same way about that. Using southern. I feel like you should be able to stand up. And then well, first of all, there's nothing public about saying that there's recently there's you've openly said, we're talking about the Canelo, I think we all have Jalen disagree. From very, very, very right Japanese, so we never have it. To themselves to survive. They did it. So, this is the way you've been done. It's about the reality, not to be able to the brutality. The brutality is wrong.
So I think that being pro-Israel and being Zionist is inherently to being pro-Palestinian. I believe that afterwards, people can do something. So I believe that Palestinians also have that same right. And I think that pro-Israel thing you can do is want to live in peace. It's one of the biggest sins of being in Israel. Jews are hated everywhere around the world just for being Jewish. And there's literally one place in the world where you can do it. I personally think that the biggest part of being a Zionist is wanting to live in peace. It's coming in with peace, it's trying to negotiate, it's trying to handle diplomacy. That's sort of tenet Zionism to me. That's the biggest pro-Israel thing you can do. And that's what I see when I'm in Israel, and that's what I see from all the things that are around me 24/7. I'm so pro-Palestine. I'm so pro-Israel, and I'm really just pro-human all around.
The overwhelming majority of Jewish people just want to be able to have a whole way when they can live in peace with their neighbors too. No one would like to see a free outside war people because you know this is fighting. I believe that where there are businesses outside living in peace, everybody's going about their business and sharing the sandbox and getting along nicely.
The way that I see it, the way that Palestinians are under occupation right now, they're under occupation by Israel. So I myself oppose Israel with the government that I hope everybody can know and yeah.
You got confused.
So for me, that's why I say if someone comes to me and says I'm pro-Palestine, it makes me feel like it's a very neutral stance, not wanting to take either side. For me, as long as Palestinians are under occupation and don't support the movement, the Israel that exists right now is not one that I personally can support. I'm not saying this about the people. I'm not saying I want to get rid of the Jews or the Israelis. But all of us here are members of the state of Israel. We did not create this. I don't think that we can and not see that we don't have stakes that the leaders and those that came before them did when they created this conflict. When Palestinians have their basic human rights and are treated equally under the law, you can call the state whatever you want to call it. And at that point, I would be happy to call you my friends and my neighbors. And there would be no problem. It seems that everybody here has the same idea for the future, and I think that is something that we should be focused on.
The reason I didn't step forward is punching the rest of the family. I hear the word Israel. I don't think the tribes of Israel. I think the state of Israel. But the state of Israel is a racist idea. Did it always start like that? I don't think so. I think there was some racism there. But I do agree reading the works of even Herzl. There was some desire to do our own thing, let them do their own thing. I am pro-Palestinian and pro-Jewish people and pro an eventual state that we can call it Jerusalem. You know what the distance to look to eliminate that? Elimination blocks of land in communities that were intentionally purchased in one continuous block. So that it can exclude people besides Jewish people. And I don't want to say Jewish people design. Until we get rid of these ideologies that plot to create division, then we cannot be pro two things that are diametrically opposed. We can't be pro every week will customize my contract. What if it's hundred? With the money I save, what if they get a wax figure next to it? Oh, right in the temple load. Read it, punk! Only pay for what you need. For the beautiful, succulent, nice city, with the streets filled with vendors making delicious treats. You smell the scent of fresh bread as you walk through. There was Muslim, Christian, Jew, coexisting perfectly. Perfectly. It was after the mass migration started to happen, first and the second and the third and that's what we were living together, no problem. Me and you 1,000 years ago, we would have been brothers. But there was an ideology, an exclusionary, xenophobic ideology, from Europe, that was imported into Ireland. And that was the import this way. But it does not consider that people that can coexist. It's by nature, it's not pro-Israeli people, pro-Jewish people is against the ideology that created racism.
You understand that, say, you're pro-Jewish people, but you're against the idea of them having self-determination over themselves and the future of their homeland, to a Jew, that sounds very anti-Jewish. That is what those three people agree. You think it could be one. I said that it's contingent on the fact of excluding the other side. If you wanted to have a state, hey, let's have a Jewish state that's open to everybody. It's our state. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not what they thought. It's not what they thought. That's why they bought the land. That's why they bought the land in contiguous blocks. That's why they bought the land. Second class. That's why they bought the land in contiguous blocks. That's why they only employed Jewish people among those in the army. They said they wanted to till the land by their own hands so they can earn.
Okay, so imperialism, right? Imperialism is the idea of coming in and imposing your religion and your language and everything on a group of people, right? That's what we've seen in Europe. Israel did not want to do that. Zionism started to be the anti-imperialism. They wanted to come in diplomatically, figure out solutions to be able to both live there. And the diplomatic solution was not an ethnic of Jews. It was a majority Jewish state. That was the offer, but it was 45% Arab. I'm not using that, by the way, but we're talking about other people. Not Israel, the Jersey, the Bedouins. I mean, it's not Jews and Muslims and Arabs. But they're all welcome in Israel. And in Israel, the Arabs are really
second class citizens. They are not allowed the same education. They are not afforded. They are not You want the statistics? I didn't know them. I live in the north. I live a long time with Arab people. Only Arab. There is no way you're going to the doctor. They don't receive the same grants from the government. Teachers are not allowed. Teachers are not allowed to have curriculum. A lot of the qualifications for qualify for the Air Force are based on serving in the IDF. I spent 3 years excludes Air Force. Being in the Air Force. And then when I finished, I want to go to the university. So I need to have X and my grade in SAT, let's say it's X. Okay, so the other people who have discriminated need to get up to get into the university. Although they didn't tell us so you say they become doctors or permanent action. Permanent action is given to people who are either minority or who are oppressed. Minority. That's the whole point of the majority of doctors in Israel and Israel are two things can be true at the same time. That's true. Two things can be true at the same time. That could be true, but it also can be true that in order to qualify for certain government benefits, you have to because you're Muslim there. You go, I'm not in here. It is a underlying systematic discrimination. It's not anything we have to look at.
Exactly. But we've made it Ethiopian Jews, how they treat it. We've made a lot different
societal racism which exists in every country, and certainly Israel's no exception. And sort of this sort of systematic, like, they can't live there and they're not allowed, whatever the proposition is here. Yeah. There is definitely discrimination and racism in Israel. There is in America, there is everywhere else, for sure. But that is a very different thing.
No, it's the same thing, but I just want to touch on the fact that you're saying that Israeli Arabs are being treated fairly, maybe some, maybe let's say right? No.
So legally speaking, I'll just say,
but the guys are saying by law, will there ever be a Palestinian president? Will there ever be a Palestinian president of Israel? I think that they can be Arab president. Will there ever? They could. Honestly, if Arabs and Israel are equal, you truly believe, tell me genuinely, to the bottom of your heart, that an Arab society that has Palestinian interests in mind, the interest of this people in mind, can ever be president of Israel? Yeah.
The last government, there is another politics, was in the coalition. The government lasted for what?
Would America ever have a black president?
I sympathize with people on the other side.
Meet Asana, a work management platform that helps companies get more done and save more time. Teams can stay connected while they track updates and visualize timelines. Asana,
I saw the way to work. Started the first thing. I just saw it, so I will say that I learned a lot from the table. And I mean, while I have a lot of Jewish friends, I've met many people who are also Israelis, who have lived there, who serve. And, you know, not to say that I did not have empathy. I've always been empathetic, you know, as an activist, as someone who's a public figure in Washington, D.C., I constantly get hateful DMs from people that will say things like, do you, like, condemn the murder of innocent Israelis? And I'm like, the fact that someone is asking me that means that they see me as somebody, just because I'm Palestinian, as someone who doesn't have heart, that doesn't care about innocent lives. And this is something that I get constantly, and it's exhausting having to always defend not only myself as a Palestinian, but the fact that obviously I don't want anyone to die, and I don't want anyone to hurt, and I don't think that anyone should be killed for who they are, whether it's based on their religion or their country of origin. All of us were born into this. You know, you were born on one side, I was born on the other. We have our own lived experiences. You know, some of us have lived there, many of us have visited there. And on both sides, I think that we can recognize that at the end of it, that's the very basis of this entire day and this conversation, is that we're really just human beings that care about our identities. We're very passionate about it. We're willing to fight for who we are, and that's our middle ground. Like, whether or not we agreed on a lot of things, which we just not. I think that the fact that we have so much passion just shows how much we actually care, how much we actually can relate to each other and resonate with what the other is going through.
I empathize with the other side because, as she said, I'm a human being, and I love humans. I love being a human being. I love the interaction with human beings. And at the end of the day, like when you said that, people message you and say, "Oh, well, what about the Israelis that died?" And you saying that they paint you into this person that's an evil person for being Palestinian. We are Palestinians. That doesn't mean we're terrorists. I'm tired of being called a terrorist. I'm tired of being called a Hamas lover. We are humanitarians. Is there good and bad on both sides? Yes. But immediately, the spotlight goes straight to us. Oh, you're Palestinian, so you must be a terrorist, and you don't empathize with the other. If you're human, you empathize with any loss of life across the globe, no matter what you are.
What's so interesting, again, it's so much of what you said, it's like the exact same word when I so like I get people being like, well, because I'm standing by Israel, I want all Palestinians to die. I have no empathy for any poor children or anything like that. So I get exactly what you're going through on the other side. And so what this conversation has done for me is to, and what I sort of hoped it would do, is to get to hear from you, and to what I sort of expected, which is what it was, is that we have very similar experiences through totally different lenses and totally different specifics. But we're experiencing a lot of the same things, and I think without empathy, it's over. I mean, there's no point in it. If we're not going to try to reach each other as human beings and see each other as human beings, we're F. To see what it is.
Yeah, too. I'm trying to click on that. When it's a tight I think that for me, my experience throughout my life, I've always been in situations where I'm the only Jew, and so frequently I get a lot of ridiculous questions like, where are your foreigners, or I was raised to think that we were the cause of all my problems, and I grew up in America, I'm not even exaggerating. And I feel like, I've been representing the Jewish people for so many years, and I'm
better understand where everything is coming from.
The problem with that, and I understand the thing to it, as a teacher, if a child is sitting there and they happen to be black, and you're saying, well, black people such and such and such. I mean, you're really that.
Yeah, and it's actually there. I don't know that. It's not that black people do this. Well, not that Africans do this. Again, it's trying to understand from what I'm saying every group is using the same thought. I'm saying every group is monolith. What I'm saying is, even if you disagree with me, something that disagree with me, there's different cultural backgrounds. Those people experience and do that.
I'll be honest, as a teacher, especially after COVID and all that, I don't have time for information again. I'm here trying to catch up with kids and like pick up my readers that are, 2-3 grade levels behind. I do not have time for that. I teach social emotional skills and all of that, but I'm not here to kind of, you need to do this and that. No. If there's a person, we're good. We're good. Okay.
But your definition, and sometimes it's not that it's inclusive, so what is your definition of a person? Would you think that I'm a good person because raising kids to their Christian values, and they live in a heterosexual home where we talk about how divorce is wrong, cheating is wrong. We have friends of the LGBT community, but we teach our children that from a biblical perspective that's not okay. Your definition of whether or not they are good could be very different than my definition of whether they are good. Because I'm verified in our conference the first time, and then I'm back to anybody, kind of starting on reading things in the back. They're good. It's not to say that topics like that don't come up. And I do open up to discussion. I would keep it clear that this is a way. We don't judge each other, we're not going to back each other, understand we have them experiences. We're not going to come in with any gender issues. And I feel like this idea of parents and their teachers of their political biases and all of this is just all this fear that it's driving their judgment. We have really not to say
not doing enough for their child. It was just too much. When parents don't have the knowledge of what goes on inside of a school, I think it's important for those parents to go to the school, and we as educators like our parents to be involved. Again, I have too many students to push an agenda. I do my job with the things.
That and it was quite simple. Boys go in this room, girls go in this room, play a little video on black and white TV, and see the genitalia, and you're like, oh God, I got one of those. Cool, now I'm figuring out what I am. The fear is these schools have no boundaries. If they do the classroom thing where they want to split kids up, how many genders are we going to do this? You're going to sort of spoil them and then girls, and then how many rooms do we need to create for equality? Are we really chasing equity? And I think parents now are beginning to realize
When we first encountered Avar soldiers in the ruins, I thought they were the archons weren't protecting the monks.
Culture.
It's possible that the Codex posed such a grave threat that we always thought it was the attackers who did this. Now I believe it was the first. We need you to press deeper into Aurelian and the gloom. But to do this...
Yes, but they're remnants. Each remnant is just use it. See where it takes you. See what the Archons are hiding.
And on this poster, in full, want to get laid? I mean, this is beyond, and this is just for pleasure-based sex.
You must speak.
She's in third grade, and she's been exposed to things, and we do have conversations about it, but that's a conversation that I should be having with my daughter. If a sixth grader or a fourth grader is going to be prompted by a teacher, hey, what are your pronouns? And the parent has to have a heads up about that, because they're not even going to understand the question. And so I think that the idea that those conversations are started in the classroom instead of in home is a big the first day of sixth grade was asked for her pronouns, and she stood up and said that as a personal face, she knew that that would make a mistake making her a girl, and so therefore she identified as a she, her, she was sent to the principal's office and punished for that decision. Thankfully, we haven't seen that broadly yet, but I think it's really different to take a shy, innocent, 11-year-old child and make them stand in front of a classroom and determine something that they needed to do that was bothered them.
Now we look at it, realize the power of trying to figure it out. I was trying first, but then it gets frustrated again the next day. The day after that, veterinarian.
Do be sure to check in with my wardens. Each of them knows firsthand what situation is
the exact agreement that was on front of the back. I want to look at myself. When I said it, was there. She's a different dog. She's unbelievable. And that set me on the journey of what is dog food? But eventually, when I used to the heart civilization, because it wasn't a brand out there for the FPJ that decided to build one.
I like what you said, Sean, about how you were emphasizing how local parents today felt a goodness of the way that sexual education was conducted in the past. So if there is an agreement that sexuality should be taught in schools, the disagreement is whether it should just be purely heteronormative or if we should include all aspects of sexuality. I don't think that we're doing demonstrations to encourage children how to have sex, but this is something that we are trying to, again, educate and make them aware that this kind of things happen. And while you grow up, you're going to have to experience somebody who's on patient.
Kids are naturally curious, and I think what I'm hearing from you is I understand where you're maybe exactly coming from, but then where's the line between that education and introducing them to porn? Because porn can be educational. I was a virgin when I got married, and for years I was made fun of and heard, well, how are you going to know if you don't try it? You hear that a lot too. If you haven't tried to kiss a girl to see if you like it or not, then how do you really know that you're not a lesbian? How do you really know that you're not gay if you've never slept with a guy? How do you really know that you want to be in a monogamous relationship if you don't stick around? And when you start to introduce those questions to children, specifically prepubescent ones, they're going to naturally be curious, and their emotional and hormonal maturity is not there to be making those types of decisions that have lifelong impact.
Well, you're right. And a lot of them are learning at home. Because just like you guys were saying, they come home and show you things. Well, guess what? Those same kids come to school and talk about the truth of them at home. You'd be surprised when I hear from students when I do it. What do you think? Well, let me tell you what my mom and dad did. And look, I don't have time. Your kid is not that important to me not to be rude. I got about 300 students. Your kid is more important than the other 290. So I don't have to clean this up here every time. And that means you think like me. My kid hit my own 20-year-old to think like me. At the end of the day, what needs to happen, and this is just my own personal thing, parents need to start being parents, because a lot of times the teachers are the parents. They're parenting their kids because absentee parents.
I think that this conversation is really interesting. I think we need to step back and look at why we automatically assume that if we're telling our children about lesbians, gay people, queer people, why do we immediately associate that to telling them about lesbians? That can just be something as simple as, here's a book. In this book, there are two dads. This book character has two dads. And kids, they can be inquisitive and that's good, right? But also, like, they're going to be like, cool, there's two dads.
all these kids know that there's a dad and a mom and a mom, and the culture is teaching all of that. So what we've noticed is that the curriculum is great enough. It's a lot deeper than that. It's more like saying, here's how you can have sex so you cannot get pregnant. The illustrations of anal sex. That is the stuff that we are now reacting against. And that, sadly, is the trust that's being broken between teachers and parents.
Yeah, and I think we're moving into a conversation about comprehensive sex ed. What I am talking about is when I go into the classroom and I'm teaching kids, I'm not going to just teach kids material that is cutting them.
Curiosity. It sounds like what you're saying is you want to be able to introduce always what? These are the people that you will encounter with throughout life. So would it be okay to include a book with a man having a relationship with a 12-year-old in that book? I know it's extreme.
No.
Hold on, but hear me out. No, I'm not. You're drawing a line that I'm not drawing.
And you're definitely talking
I agree. And this is why I'm bringing it up. It's who establishes the boundaries.
The law.
But what? The law.
There's law between adults having sex with children. Now, if a student has two parents who happen to be of the same sex, I'm not going to sit there and discount who they are in class. I cannot do that. I silence contract.
I would never ask anybody to uplift or suppress any child. I want there to be equality in the classroom. What I am saying is that there are factual instances where this is being taught in classrooms. I pull my children out of public school because there are so many instances of this happening. I am a parent. I'm looking in the book bag every day. I'm checking in with homework. I am talking to the teachers and the principals, and I'm involved. But we didn't know that, during class, there were images shown of literal sex acts or describing certain situations that were inappropriate for young children.
We have a belief system at home, and the children want to break the boundaries of that belief system. Naturally, because they're human beings. That's just what we do. And we're trying to confine them to a set of beliefs to say, this is what is right in our home. And we're seeing schools get funding from Planned Parenthood. They try to pass a bill to put medical facilities to offer abortion in high school here in California. And it's gradual, right? It starts with, this is a book that might forget. This is a book for 2 months. This is in it. Just a gradual curiosity that could leverage and break away that child from the root from the whole.
My education is growing up with fully public education. College is where I started getting a curiosity for truth and education, and I think I'm so passionate about the education system today because it is obviously broken. How do you fix it? Many of these progressive ideas of fixing it is just more empathy, sympathy, safety, but in reality, I think the public school system isn't actually accomplishing the goal of what education is. Teaching critical thinking, how to understand, how to ask good questions, and then comprehend how to problem solve.
There was a high school down the street from where I live in Los Angeles that encouraged all the kids of color to apply for their school play, and only one other kids of color received whatever positions they needed, so then the white kids could apply. That is an example of discrimination. The fact that we now have Harvard has black and mixed dorms, that to me is segregation.
With affirmative action, we see with Harvard lawsuits and other things, how it's backfiring, and it's picking and choosing of which minorities can have success. It was done to try to create make up for the wrongs of our past, but I think it really backfires.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, excluding those excelling students and other nations to fix the problems of the past, like you said. But I think the past, there were a lot of minorities that were excelling and doing really well.
Despite the government and kudos to them. It's incredible, strong team. And we didn't have that discrimination anyway, but unfortunately it has become a discrimination against other groups. It's racist. It's very racist. If you are taking a group of people and judging them on their race and setting them aside, giving them a special treatment, if you are uplifting a person or you are trying to suppress a person because of their race, it's racism. So we're supposed to believe that someone like Barack Obama's children are struggling because of that. Like, that's ridiculous. I told my oldest daughter about a public school in Florida. We were having debates about pulling down statues and changing names and some of the school board members and some of the Jewish people will say that black children have not learned because of names and buildings, and that is completely asinine to me. It basically says that because we have a higher level of knowledge, somehow our brains don't work. And the other kids who walk into the building and get the education that they need, but somehow not for you black children. And I found that to be just disgusting, and I did not want my children to have any type of idea coming from authority figures who believe in such things like that.
First of all, I would like to say that apparently actually sometimes the biggest beneficiary according to the data, and this is good, government data has the white women first and foremost. Second of all, I remember you Barack Obama's kids would go on with their family things, but they do have privilege as well as personal kids. But we talk about McSwan switch out of seat that nobody knows. There will be some impediments based on race, yeah. Because people do things and look and see race. When people come up with racism, but when it's institutional and structural, it does something totally different. And when the black wealth gap is 100 years behind the white wealth gap in America, it'll take 100 years to catch up.
Why do you think that's because of racism? You take one thing and say that is the cause for every person of color. What data? What data is saying that the black people are behind? Because there are many black people that aren't behind, that are being considered as other people.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there are outliers in every single community. There are very strong, members of the black community that are very affluent. There are also a majority that live in poverty. And if we see a bunch of cities that are majority person of color, and we're trying to recognize why these places stay at a very stable poverty. But there are systemic reasons for why these communities are like that. How would you say that?
Policies that are in those
racist policies. When would you say that Washington Compton became the way it is? Was it like that? No, it's a growth in California. In all kinds of racist policies.
All of these supposed solutions are actually hurting. Wouldn't a better solution be to teach our kids that we're all born in the sky? We should all treat one another equally. And if you're asked for and we're all equal, right? If you come from a poor neighborhood, whether you're black, Hispanic, or an immigrant from anywhere, obviously you don't have the same privileges that somebody who comes from a wealthy community. So that's nothing to do with your color. I don't think that if you're an impoverished black kid or you're an impoverished white kid, one should receive a resource and the other shouldn't.
Would you say that economic is the reason that causes these disparities?
Economic, but I don't think it's related to color.
But would you say if there's a majority particular group that lies in poverty and economic, that group has anything to do with it? It could, but it's just not right. We don't know. Why don't we look at the families, the black families, who've done those amazing things in this country and study what they did to succeed instead of just focusing on, black people are behind and we don't even know what to do. Why don't we just go and look? Because you are a professor, isn't that if you go and look at when it's worked?
I would never just go to you and just look at you. And I'm sorry, it's just the reality of the data. And so what I
data can be broken up into 18 different ways. Yeah, you're a professor and you're saying, well, data cannot be manipulated. This is why I could do not know to help with it. I just think it's interesting. I'm thinking about an anecdotal story of how Rock School, the school that I taught at, I served the majority of black and brown students. Over 70% of my family under the poverty line. These are some of the hardest working people I have ever seen in my life. They get up, they have 2 or 3 jobs, 3 or 4 children. Because of the economic, because of liberal policies that is the government telling them that they cannot succeed, because of how higher property taxes are here, because we do not have school choice so they can take their dollars somewhere else. If you put those same families in redder districts in the country, like places in Florida and Texas or Virginia, where they have better options for their families, you would definitely see them be able to. And when black and brown children still underperforming school,
coming from Florida, the school that I was at is rated from like A to like C. When I started there, it was a preschool. Very poor performing. And technically, sure, they have school choice. They don't take test anymore, but they still bad. Very little white students in that community. But not to say that students probably can be more affluent, but I think it's ridiculous to kind of say that color
doesn't play a part into disparities and just disadvantages. So in Florida, a lot of people that I had encountered weren't kind to others, and sometimes I would have coworkers call students and using racist slurs and things like that. And from my standpoint, hearing something like that, it disgusted me. My coworkers very quickly were able to kind of distinguish me from the rest. Like, if I was going to come to the teacher's lounge, more hushed conversation, people wouldn't share as much as they used to, just because I would call out behavior like that.
I'm going to disagree.
So I was really, as a kid, I didn't really know how I felt about this issue at first. But then I started looking at places that had higher teachers. So I believe that model is that you have to be voluntary.
Yeah.
So
You're a three.
What to do with themselves. They have to be well trained. They have to have background checks periodically. That has been successful.
If we're trusting teachers, which in some cases we do, in some cases we don't, but if my mindset is that if we're going to trust teachers to mold our children's minds and educate them, they're there for 8 hours a day. We should also trust and kind of enable them to protect themselves and our kids physically.
And by no means should we ever force a teacher to carry a gun, but if a teacher is willing to take on the responsibility of learning how to handle a weapon properly, I think that would allow them to do that for us, and it frankly would be an incredible service to us.
All right, so just to break it open, this conversation is so much more nuanced than to arm or not arm. And if you want to save the schools, you need to get parental engagement. Let's look at the mindset of the individuals that are going into these homes with firearms. Those individuals are not mentally okay. There's something wrong happening, whether it's at school, in the house, whether it's, who knows, maybe it's something that's happening online. And I think that's the parents' job to continue to engage to make sure that child is healthy. A lot of these kids, as well as that are going into schools that are not mentally healthy, they're coming to critical health, they're coming to living with their grandparents. There's something intrinsically with their identity that's broken. And I think that whether you arm a school or you don't, it's not going to change it. You don't address the issue.
I agree with you. The people that are, perpetrating these crimes and these mass casualties are messed up individuals. I absolutely agree. Mass shootings are a uniquely American problem. So if we try to understand what's the root, why is America so have that problem, I would say it's a gun culture problem. So if the idea is, should we try to remove the gun culture that really pervades in our society? Should we do that, or should we just increase the amount of firearms we can have in every single space, just so that way we're properly ready for gun fight? And I want to clarify gun culture. Are you saying that there's like the shoot 'em up, bang 'em up video games? Or are you saying? No, I would say video games. I'd say institutions like the NRA that heavily impose, you need to own not just firearms, but as many firearms as you can. I personally do not like to be armed. I do not want to take legal action, and I want to make it safe and secure environment. Army teachers is a response measure to particular violence that goes on in our schools here in America. And personally, I think we should focus more towards solutions to prevent the current system happening, rather than just implementing responses implying that these actions will occur.
I'm just going to be honest with you. You don't want me to have a gun because I had to go back to therapy in the last few months, and so I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, what your plan was. But I would also say mental health. We got to understand some of these school shootings are done because people have snapped.
People have natural biases and things like that, and people could act on those biases. Then they could be guns drawn and not a clear mind. As a parent, how would you feel knowing that you don't know which teachers have a gun, and you've had bad experiences with prior teachers? What if that teacher that absolutely,
So my answer to your question is, I feel the same way about the guard instead of my kid's school. I don't really know the guard, but he's gone through training, and I presume that he knows what he's doing. And frankly, I feel the same way about a police officer. I don't need a police officer, but they've gone through training, and they were willing to take on that responsibility. And so I would apply the same logic. It's so interesting that you bring that up, because it really ties back to why I feel like we need to be careful about how much responsibility we're saddling teachers with teaching our kids values, right? On the one hand, the system is saying, trust our teachers, they know better than you parents. We should be able to teach them what they need to know about sexuality. On the other hand, you guys are admitting that many teachers are not really checked for mental issues. We don't really know what is happening happening in these classrooms.
I'm not thinking about what in our chest. We very secretly have like professional development days where we have self-care, but I wouldn't say many by any means. And when I'm coming into the workplace, I'm not bringing in all my baggage. As to say, you go into your work, you're not like, oh, I'm so depressed because this.
So why, if there is a teacher that is willing to step forward and will go through the training and will go through the screening, why not empower them to save our kids? I mean, in Uvalde, if there was a teacher who could actually save those children, then maybe we would not have seen so much death.
When we place teachers with a firearm in the classroom, it takes the instance of a violent occurrence from a possibility in the minds of these children to an inevitability.
But the children don't know. It is a concealed and carry weapon that has gone through the process of the local sheriff's department, background check, training, check that every bus that now
I have a logistical question.
Yeah.
Does this teacher have to run on them?
Yeah.
Is it holstered on them?
Also, and also concealed carry. It should never be in place of a child.
It's illegal.
I know it's concealed carry. My thing, and why this question sort of enrages me. Why are we asking teachers to carry guns? When did this become an occupational hazard? When did we walk into school and people were like, by the way, you could be shot today, so maybe you should have your boss strapped on you because who knows? This might be your last day. That is ridiculous. If you 50 years ago were to look at a teacher and be like, hey, do you want to hold this gun with you? Like you might need it. They're gonna scratch their heads and look at you. It is opening up a bigger conversation, right? But I think that even though it is voluntary, right, we still need to have this conversation. Like it still needs to happen of why, even if the teacher was willing to carry a gun to school, they are even having to be asked to do that in the first place.
Every day I wake up and I hand to you guys the most precious thing in my entire life, my children. I think that it's important that our society will reflect how much we value you guys. And that you should receive bonuses if you do a great job. If you're able to represent all of us as Americans, both conservative and liberal, and you're able to speak on our behalf and take care of our children, we should reward you for that, and we should feel rewarded for that. And so I don't know exactly what you make, but I think it is really important that we invest in you and move forward into you. And when I see the entire budget that the state of California, for example, spends on education, and I realize that a sliver fraction of it only goes to you guys, it breaks my heart, and frankly, it makes me so angry. I don't need more bureaucrats. I need more good teachers.
I left the K-12 and went to the community college, and I do pretty well. I'm going to be clear with that. But also I have a master's. So I have a master's. I have to work really hard to get where I'm at. But I'm also in the doctoral program, and you're right, I'm paying out of pocket too. Again, I had a student the other day saying, I can't pay my lecture bill. How much is your lecture bill? I'll pay your lecture bill. And so I put up students in hotels because they have nowhere to live. I have a student who doesn't have a family. He told me the other day, I need a dad. I said, I'll be your father. Because it just broke my heart that a 19-year-old is in this world alone, doesn't have family.
I would be scared to calculate how much you spent in my whole next year, right? Like all the materials, all the things that I'm purchasing, all the things that I'm doing. And it's just interesting to think that we are always told, teachers are heroes, they're teaching the youth of America. But also, we're not going to give you enough money to survive completely. You're going to struggle every day. There have been days when I go to work and I'm like, am I going to have money for gas in my car? I guess we're going to find out, right? And I know so many other teachers who are struggling with these people. Oh, I can't even imagine I can't even think about having a family as a teacher. I think that growing up, I was not the strongest student. I didn't necessarily see the point of what we were doing. And I think that ultimately that felt like it was because education was something that I had to get through, not necessarily something that I was obtaining. But I think what really pushed me to go into teaching was wanting to give kids a space where they didn't feel the way I do growing up, where they felt like they had power to make choice in their education, and that their education could be powerful and lead them to do what they wanted to do.
So I'm not a teacher. I don't know how much you guys make. I'm not going to use you as the example. I'm going to use a friend of mine. She's been at a school for a number of years, I want to say 6, 7, 8 years, and she's become tenured. And through her tenureship, she's accumulated so much wealth. I'm appalled at how much she's making. She teaches Spanish to 6th graders, and she's making over $150,000 a year.
Can I say something? What am I supposed to do with that?
Out of school? Yeah. And it's
I'm an experience.
goes on with that too.
It must, I'm assuming, because you've invested into your career, which I think everybody should. But for me, I look at it as you're making $150,000 in 9 months.
And the top very clearly was our teachers paid enough.
Yes.
And I mean, we're not. I had to work second jobs doing work just so that we were making enough. And if you look at these shoes, they are ripped, they are broken. From a teacher's wish list, I cannot even buy these shoes myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to.
So I wanted to clarify, this isn't an absolute, I'm not saying that every teacher is paid enough. I have no idea what your salary is, I have no idea any of those details. I'm just recognizing that if a teacher is getting 9 months for their salary in 9 months, you get some of them. Most of society is getting 3 months.
That doesn't mean they have 3 months. I'm an 11-month employee, so 1 full month out of the year, I'm not paid anything. Nothing. I have to figure out my funds, save money that I don't have to try to supply for a month and a half. I don't get supplementary income if that doesn't happen.
Well, I'll go first. My daughter, same teacher actually, who was asking about her pronouns, she said that she was going to be introducing some race-themed books. My daughter recorded this conversation in class. So what proceeded to happen is she started to talk to the children in their, I guess, identity group. Oh, as an African-American child, how are you discriminated against? As an Asian child, she went through all except white people. It became total chaos in the classroom. There was no education going on here. They were just literally going at each other talking about who was more oppressed. It's not a matter of if something was racist, it's a matter of when something was racist or how the racist thing happened. So they automatically assume, critical race theorists, that racism is embedded into every single thing. How do you look a child, specifically a black child, in the eye and tell them, I'm sorry for you? Because of your skin color, there's no hope for you in the greatest country literally for them. Because black Americans are the most successful black people in the entire world. And then turn around and look at a white child and say, sorry, you're responsible for the atrocities of 200 years.
All I have to add to that is that in our home and with our faith, I teach my children that it is awful to make someone feel hopeless or pity. You're damning them to a future of failure if you are telling them, oh, I pity you and I'm going to do these things for you, instead of coming alongside them and supporting them and doing something for themselves that pulls them out of that hopelessness. And I think that those are two of the worst things that we can do as a broader society.
You know what I love about America? My mother immigrated from Morocco. She's a Jewish person. Everywhere around the world, we're known as the Jew. In America, we're known as Americans. And I think there's something so powerful about empowering any community to be American and to succeed based on their own merit. We don't look back into why we can't. We look into why we can't. And so when my family taught me, since I was a little girl, I can, I learned that I could. And that's why I think this something has empowered me so much. I want to see the same thing for kids of all colors in the United States. But it's really hard. It's like teaching them that there is no hope for them, and that people will always look at them in a different way. And how are they going to hear the messages like that? My question for liberal teachers is, do they think that it's the right place for them to impose liberal ideas in classrooms, knowing that they have many students who come from conservative families? And I find that many of the schools have become battlegrounds for those kinds of ideas, and when teachers are bringing those issues to the classroom, it's forcing families and conservative kids to have to address these issues, and we believe that they're simply too young to deal with those kinds of complex matters at that age.
Okay, so first of all, I distinctly define what critical race theory is. Critical race theory is a theory that Derek Bell and Shinley Crenshaw and a bunch of former Harvard law students came up with, where they theorize that within the country of the law, racism is just embedded. And so, I'm sorry to you, you shouldn't have to go through that. Nobody should have to go through that. I don't tell my son, you can't do anything. I have told my son, you have to work twice as hard. I have to tell my son, you're a black man in America, there are certain things you need to do to survive.
I mean, first, I think the idea that we are teaching children critical race theory in schools is ridiculous. As you think about, this is a high university framework. You are not going to walk into, like, Isabel's elementary school with your classroom and see Isabel telling these people about the legal structure. In my opinion, how I define myself as an American, right? I define myself as someone who is proud of my country, someone who can look at the mistakes that my country has made in the past and the things that are keeping other people oppressed,
and recognize that these are still existing and that we exist. So I don't see how critical race theory could be anti-American. Because that's how I define American. And I think it's very nuanced because people define American in many different ways. I don't completely disagree with your definition of it. I think that maybe you think it's systemic and I think it's the individual. But I think that even in nuanced ways, like the example that she gave, I've heard examples where my nieces have been segregated in the classroom at 4th and 5th grade. And like, well, did this happen to you? Do you have a 2-parent home? Are your grandparents raising you? And like, there's this line of victimhood. And as a woman that has dealt with sexism, I do definitely teach my daughters, like, as a girl in this country, it is going to be a different experience than your father. But I don't think it's beneficial at all to kind of institute that victimhood in their long-term mentality, because then you actually start to see kids that are like, oh, well, they're different than me, so therefore their life should be better or worse than mine. And instead of engaging with those people, they step away.
I don't believe that there's a victimhood to it. I think it's just kind of amplifying that, hey, this is the truth, this is what happened, and let's move forward with that. Having that knowledge to be able to kind of navigate through life is better than just, oh, well, I assume I'm the same as, my white counterpart. Oh, why is she able to do this? Why does she have this opportunity that I don't?
But they're the same.
But she has that.
They are the same. That's what we're saying. I think one of the differences, we're stating normative statements, and you guys are claiming that we're stating prescriptive claims. So the normative statement that we're presenting is, these events happen in American history. These are the outcomes that have led from those events. What you guys are saying is, we're then having prescriptive statements, which is, that's why you should never really trust, because you don't ever get into history.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you negatively stress a child with these thoughts, that will be the outcome, because that's how human beings work. This is a psychological effect.
I believe it is the government's job. But look, our funding comes through government. Our schools are government entities. So it is policies of government, everything is government. I mean, if you're in public education, you're in government. We're bureaucrats. That's literally what our job. So it is government's job. So yeah, I believe it is. I believe it is the job of the government, because schools are government. That's what it's called, the government institution.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Government provides a certain quality to education. Obviously, they haven't provided those funds. They haven't.
Alexa, trophy alarm.
Teacher or anything like that. So it really shows in our education, in kids, and all around.